The wait is finally over. Utah football is back, at least in spring form. So what are the biggest questions this team needs to answer during spring ball? We're breaking it down on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, for $20 off your first purchase. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined on today's show by Tony Parks, ESPN College Basketball, Salt Lake radio scene as well, voice of the Salt Lake Bees, and Tony did an awesome job at the Big Sky Tournament last week too with Joe Cravens. Really loved hearing you on that. And now we're moving on from basketball season a little bit. At least March Madness is going on. But for Utah, we got to focus on spring football. So on today's show, we're going to be talking about the biggest questions we have, talk about some breakout stars, and close with a little interesting thing on Utah baseball as well too. But Tony, for me, I think when I'm talking about the biggest things that Utah needs to figure out during spring ball has to be Jason Beck's offensive identity with this team. Devon Dampier is going to be the guy under center. We feel very strongly about that bargain. I think absolutely insane. We know some of the supporting pieces. They need to figure those out. But what is this team's identity? We know Dampier is a heck of a dual threat athlete, but what does this new look Utah offense look like? I think installing that and figuring out who the main guys are, especially on the outside, has to be the priority for Utah.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about it. You know, I mean, in the game of football, quarterback play 9 times out of 10 when you're talking spring, that's going to be a huge focal point. You know, only a few teams out there will have a guy who's, you know, been there for the number of years that they need, and they know the system and they have the continuity. So especially in this era of college football, you're going to have a lot of new quarterbacks stepping into new situations. And the big question becomes, you know, could Coach Beck get the very best out of him? Because when you look at Dampier's best, it is absolutely electric. It's fantastic. You love to see it. It's exciting. But for a guy that has a 1-to-1 TD to interception ratio, that doesn't sit well with Kyle Whittingham, right? That never well, by the way. So I always found it interesting when thinking back to say, and I'm going to use this example, you know, Travis Wilson, people had remembered some of the struggles that he had. If you look at his non-Power 5 numbers, he was out of this world. I forget what it was. There was a point in time where I was adding it up, and it was like the completion percentage was like 77%. He was like 16-1 TD to interception. He was out of this world. Then in the Pac-12 at the time, he was like an interception every 9 attempts. So you saw the glaring difference. In this scenario for him, it's got to be there where you can really maximize what his strengths are. You have to minimize some of the deficiencies. And then you're going to find out when live bullets get flying and it comes to making quick, immediate decisions in a new situation. You know, is it a match made in heaven where he hits the ground running? We'll find out. Is it one of those where he bumps and skids the first half of the year, but the last half of the year he plays all conference level? We'll see. But this dude was all conference, you know, at the group of 5 level. That really says something, right? Like this guy can absolutely play. And I think he's a tremendous athlete. And I think he's obviously got so much of that toolbox that you want to see for a guy that can be a hopeful quality QB now in a power conference. When you talk about all of it all together, though, here's where I get very curious. In the history of Kyle Whittingham, when you have a QB who's learning as he goes, they pull back, man, and they go conservative. And so people all the time, when I'd be on the air, they'd criticize Kyle Whittingham saying he doesn't throw enough. And my thing is, no, I think he would if there was enough trust to have some of the explosive playmaking. And then you're in a chicken and egg argument. Are they not developing QBs? You know, is it because they're using too much of a mindset of scarcity? And then you get into that realm. But when you had Huntley operating at optimal level, you know, when you end up with QBs who are going like a Cam Rising at optimal level, there was a lot more leash to work with, right? So that I think is going to be interesting early and often is how much would they be able to risk, you know, to allow a guy like Dampier to make major plays more often. Because the moment all of a sudden you move with scarcity, it's simple, safe, handoff, dump down. And my thing is you could grind your way to an 8-win season that way, but you can't do anything elite with that. So that whole big picture it's going to be unique to see where that trust is allowed and how much lease he's given to make some of the spectacular plays. But first, he's got to get great at the solid.
1000%. And that's a great point too on how frequently we've seen Witt not allow his quarterbacks to be the best version of themselves at risk or worry of them turning it over, which can at times that mean, yes, you don't lose, but also it means you don't play to lose, but you're also not playing to win necessarily either. So it becomes a very difficult and delicate balance there, but I am excited to see how this team navigates it. Yes, Jason Beck, Devon Dampier together last year at New Mexico, but how does that work at the next level? You have to evolve, you have to adapt.
Yes.
And sure, Dampier is going to have some better receivers, but they also going to be playing against better secondary. So that's where this also factors into it here. When talking about breakout stars, I'll get to that in a moment. Tony, I want to let you, I talked about my questions with this team. I feel like the biggest priority during spring ball, get the offense on the same page. To you, what are you looking at and you're most curious to see during spring ball?
Well, the one thing I still thought was intact last year for Utah that should make the fan base feel good, the physicality of the team never waned.
Yeah.
And it was really sad watching them lose because you could see so many of the residuals that were there from the really great Utah teams of the past. Yep. Physicality, the game against BYU, I thought was the ultimate where, they actually won that game physically and then played from ahead for so much of the game and made just enough of the losing plays and they were not able to finish. And a lot of times last year, they were not able to finish. Quarterback play was a part of that. We know they had an issue with playing consistent with consistency. And I just felt like there was something that we don't know about under the hood that had at very least mild dysfunction. That was the most non-Utah football season in so many ways that I've ever seen. Not just the record. There was just something there where they didn't play with some of that confidence consistently over the course of 60 minutes that I'm used to seeing. However, physicality of the team was there, and I think that would be a great identity for this team once again. So offensively, you start talking about some of the breakout players. I think one of the guys that I will get to, I think can go hand in hand with some of that. And so, people are going to have all eyes on this program right away. And you mentioned everything that you'll see from, say, going New Mexico into a power conference, into a major conference. For a guy like Dampier, and I've talked with other guys who've played at, different levels, and then they say they go to a power conference. They're like, oh, sometimes your mind is used to seeing certain things and gaps close quicker, or gaps are smaller, or just that you have to be so much more accurate, so much more precise. And maybe you didn't realize what you were getting away with before, and now have to understand you can't get away with it anymore. So I do think the physicality of the team is something I think that will be good once again, because, man, it's just something they pride themselves on. It's something they build towards. Obviously, we can talk all day about NIL and some of the transfer portal that's hurt them, no doubt. But that identity of a Kyle Whittingham team, I think, is still going to be intact, and that needs to be where they start and branch out from there.
All 5 starters on the offensive line return up front. Lose a lot of D tackle, but this is Utah defensive tackles. We know the physicality is going to be there as well. You bring in some good transfer defensive ends too. So we do. Lander Barton obviously aids in that physicality, him returning too. So Utah has some big pieces back there. Going to keep the identity of this team intact, but how will the offense take shape? Something they got to figure out. And then something that's always curious in spring ball is who's going to be the breakout players. That's what we're going to be talking about each, who we think will be some breakout stars in spring ball in one moment. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. With Monarch Money, do you just ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending, all in one place. So you just have to stop not just managing your money, but you can start building your wealth. It's also the surprising insights. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Also, that all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So also that easy collaboration. Managing Monarch with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track, share, share your personal account, and set goals that stay on the same page without stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use that code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Yes, that's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, for half off your first year. You can head over to monarchmoney.com and start budgeting smarter for tomorrow today by using Monarch Money right now. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Game Time. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like the experience of a big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful too. That's where Game Time comes in, making things easier to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Game Picks curation makes it even easier to find the best value for tickets to sports, concert, comedy, and theater events near you. Their easy ticket shopping is something I love. I just checked the Game Time app, and there are amazing deals on some huge matchups coming up, whether it's Utah Jazz, Utah Hockey Club, or any of the biggest games coming up this month. Game Time has you covered. How about the super deals too? The lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. They also offer you that peace of mind with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guarantee you can book with total confidence. What's the most annoying thing about other ticket apps frequently? You don't know where your seat is going to look like because they don't offer a seat view, and the surprise fees that pop up at the end. Game Time doesn't have those. So you need to make sure to take the guesswork out of buying tickets by using Game Time today. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's all caps, no spaces, for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed with Game Time. Tony Park's back with me here. When we talk about breakout players, look, we talked about them a little bit already for me, but it's just a matter of how big of a leap it is in quarterback play, especially in terms of just excitement. I think Devon Dampier will be the breakout star of spring ball. I think you're going to see coaches raving about him. I think you're going to see players raving about him. Even though it's spring ball and you can't hit the quarterback, I just think there's a number of plays that he is going to make because he's a spectacular athlete, and he made so many jaw-dropping plays last year at New Mexico. We're talking about the only only quarterback in the country who ran for over 1,000 yards and passed for over 2,500 yards. So I guess what I said is true originally. Only player in the country, of course, as well. So this is a guy, I do think he's going to end up being the breakout star and earn the rave reviews. Do you agree, or you think it's someone else?
I think he'll impress. I think it's hard because of some of the elements that come with spring ball, right? There's certain things we just don't know. The guy I'm really excited for is Wayshawn Parker. I think this is an outstanding fit. And I understand Washington State was not in a power conference last year. But when I watched him, there's a mentality that he has that I think fits Utah football. And I think that this could be a terrific opportunity for him. You know, you get a guy who runs with that kind of violence in his first carry all the way to his last carry of a game. You know, his numbers are not going to jump out to you. He wouldn't be, the running back on a championship fantasy football team, right? But when you go, okay, what do we want to establish into who we are? Who do we feel like could be that guy that fits a great opportunity in our system, right? And like I talk about the mentality, I thought he was very underrated as a receiver. And I know those numbers aren't great, but I thought he did a really nice job in that area too. And I think he could be used in a lot of versatility. Here's the other thing. He's going to be very committed to pass protection. You can do everything you want to run the football. Does a guy want to stand in there and put his face into a linebacker, in every situation? Yeah. So I think he's hungry. I think he's hungry to prove himself at this level in a Big 12 setting, right? I think he's absolutely excited to play for this type of team, smash mouth football. Hey, when we need a yard, we're going to give you the ball, and these horses up front are going to, give you the push that it takes to do that. I think the University of Utah football program kind of fits his mindset. I think it's a terrific fit. I don't know if he's going to have the production of a Booker or a Moss, but I do think that when we talk breakout, meaning a guy that we're not talking about right now, that we could be talking about as a household name. I'm just very excited for the potential and the upside of Wayshawn Parker.
I am too. I think the thing I will say is also what you said with Devon Dampier, though. I do think there's limitation on spring ball that I wonder won't prevent him from breaking out. Like they and we only get to see 20 minutes of the practices. Of course, they don't let us see the full thing, but they don't really tackle too much. So also a lot of those like plays inside, like he'll probably be able to he'll run for almost 10 to 20 yards every time. And then they'll blow the whistle dead because he's going to be able to make those cuts. So that's where I'm interested. But I think with both Dampier and Parker, it goes back to, we're looking for how the players talk about them, just the speed and the gear that they can hit that made them big transfer additions. I think that's what will be the thing that sets those guys apart. And speaking of things,
go ahead. No, I was going to say there was one thing that jumped out to me. That was when things started changing for Kyle Whittingham in that Pac-12 era, right? They had the 2, 5, and 7 years. It was actually Booker. That was the guy that jumped out to everybody with a spring ball situation. And it was like, okay, you finally have the running back that can fall forward, that can finish runs like that, that can take a 2-3 yard run, turn it into a 4, 5, 6 yard run, and set you up for better situations. That was actually the first indication that they were moving somewhere. Then it was also Gianni Paul and Kalen Clay. And there was this kind of nice mixture where they went from, could they go to a bowl game, to, if everything goes just right, they're a real threat to win the division, right? Like it was when things started to show a different phase. And I'm hoping Wayshawn Parker can be one of those players.
That's the hope for this team. When talking about other big questions that I think this team needs to answer, like get a better idea. Who are your top 3 receivers? I mean, everyone's gone at the receiver position. It feels like no money park. They tried their hardest to be able to get Dorian Singer back. It just didn't end up working out with that 5th year of eligibility they were hoping to snag. So lots of new guys at the wide receiver. QB depth chart. Most years we knew Cam Rising was going to be the guy, but it was for so long. Who are the backups going to be? That's still a big question this team has to answer. I think it's going to be Nate Johnson, but is it going to be Zerbrug, the Oklahoma transfer? Is Isaac Wilson going to win the job again after he won it last year? And then obviously didn't go great there. And then you look at the veterans on the defensive side of the ball you have to replace. There's no Tanuvasa. There's no Tafuna. There's no Vaughn. There's no Reed. There's no Calhoun. That's a lot of your production from a top, I think it was the 2nd ranked defense in the Big 12 last year. So who steps up in those places too? And I mean, I could even say, like, is this going to be Witt's last spring ball? Like, those are all the questions that I'm looking at here, Tony. Are there any other ones that stand out to you or I might have forgotten there?
I think you're right on with it. I think the receiver thing is the one thing out of all the years in the Kyle Whittingham era. You had a Darren Carrington, who I thought was so gifted, and you had Kalen Clay, who had blazing speed, but was a bad route runner, right? You had, you've got so many receivers where it was like, wow, great hands, not enough speed, a lot of speed, not good hands, right? Like you could just go all day long on every receiver, just having something great about them, but also flawed here. I'm really stunned that they, over all these years, have not been able to really get more quality receivers into that group. I think one thing that they could tell a lot of guys is you could get on the field right away. I think with the transfer portal, they should be incredibly aggressive in this area. Like this is an area I think that they could really look at. I think what Arizona State did to get Xavier Guillory, if I remember right? Like I look at like how many quality players came out of the Big Sky, let's say, right? So some FCS transfers, that needs to be an area that really gets emphasized, because far too often I looked at the receivers as a collective unit and I just thought they're all right. Like Vele's good.
1,000%.
Like you'd have like, okay, good. And then, okay, this guy has a great element to his game, but the collective unit never, in my opinion, was never a group that could scare another team. And I think at times they've had some quality QBs that have been mixed with that. So there's chicken and egg there. Sometimes they haven't had the quarterback play, but far too often I didn't feel like receivers did their quarterbacks or did the offense a favor enough. They need dudes to hang on to the tough catch more often. You need a guy to go make a play. You're going to win at this level with this many teams in that conference. You got to have some dudes that just go make a play. It can't be where the throw is perfect every time and the play is executed just right every single time. It's too tough. It's too tough to make that happen. So I'm excited for some newcomers on this group, but that is once again an area where I go, man, can you find that and get that? It's weird, like D tackle. I'm not saying they're automatically going to be elite there, but they have such a system. They have a number of guys to get in there, build up, to find somebody to be disruptive and, create some pressure. And then I look at, what they may do with Jonathan Hall now, right? And switching positions again. But like, I, no matter what, feel like, he's in good hands. He's got coaches that know, he's a guy that can develop, learn, grow. I don't think it's going to be one of those where you bump and skid your way to this very, C- season. You just always feel like they're going to, but that was the one position group, receivers, out of all these years where I just thought, man, I always felt like somewhere along the line, they could get it right, where you get this group of 5 guys where 3 of them scare the daylights out of you and the 4th and 5th just complement it so well.
I totally agree. And I even think the last 2 years could have been when this team had that. It maybe was going to be Devon Bailey, but you mentioned it perfectly. The chicken or the egg. When you had Devon Bailey at his best, didn't have the best quarterback play. Dorian Singer looks like he's really good.
Right.
Don't have the right quarterback play. So right there. So is Otto Tia from Utah State going to be that guy this year? Is it going to be a Zacharias Williams who broke out against UCF? And is he going to surprise us and have a big year? Lots of candidates. Who's it going to be? So we're going to be monitoring all these battles closely in spring ball. And I'm just excited that spring ball is here. It's always fun to monitor and see how it goes on. And one thing that's also here is the Utah baseball season. They're not playing in their new ballpark just yet, but we're going to talk about the significance of the ballpark they are playing with for the Utah baseball team in one moment. Today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Daylight savings snuck up on us once again. And if you're feeling that loss of an hour of sleep, 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament or squeezing in a round of golf after work or just trying to keep up with a busy day, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. Basketball madness is here. It's a great time of the month to watch the games, but I've been staying up late trying to watch all the tournament action, and 5 Hour Energy helps me keep up that extra pace all day long. Extra daylight, extra activities too. With longer days, I love getting outside for a hike or a run. Tropical Burst is my go-to for a quick boost. Or how about the on-the-go convenience? Whether I'm at a game or traveling, 5 Hour Energy is easy to grab and keep me feeling refreshed. Life is already stressful, hectic, and just crazy enough. And now we're trying to add in watching all the best basketball games too. That's where you need 5 Hour Energy for that extra boost to get you through those late-night buzzer beaters and then especially those early mornings as well. You can head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 players to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack, delivering right to your door. Need one now? Grab 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized with 5 Hour Energy. March Madness starts today, but there's still time to get all the insight you need with Locked On Bracket Breakdown.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Tony Park's back with me here. Tony, the Utah baseball team is winding down their final season at Smith's Ballpark. So far this year, 11-8, 0-3 in conference. Haven't gotten to play a home game quite yet. But as we just make this transition, what do you think the significance of that ballpark is to, and I know it's more home for the Bees, who you are the voice of too, but even for Utah baseball?
Oh, it has major significance. I mean, I loved the fans that would come out for those games that was there. I mean, that place holds a special heart, a place in the heart of so many baseball fans. I mean, I very much remember going to baseball games, Utah baseball games, especially the weather starts getting good. It'd be even before the, what was the Stingers back then, the Stingers season would get going. I'd stop by. Tickets were really affordable. That stadium is very special. It has so many great memories, but you know, the location of it with its history there for 97 years, you know, so we had our final season there and it was magical. I mean, it was absolutely magical, everything about it. And honored to, you know, have called the final, you know, Salt Lake Bees game in that stadium and to be a part of those memories. So I do know that it holds a significant place in the hearts of many others when it comes to Utah baseball too. And so another chance for people to go see baseball in that stadium again. I hope they go out. I hope they support. I hope they enjoy as many memories as they can about that place while also obviously enjoying a new stadium in Daybreak. So, you know me, I'm a baseball junkie, man. So if you get a chance to, you know, there's a nostalgic element to it. There's all those things. And so it's, you know, with baseball in this market, but specifically that location, it's special for that being Utah's last season as well.
And Utah is going to get a new baseball location as well. It's going to be just down the road from the football facility we were just talking about. I do feel like it will. It's Smith's Ballpark's been a special place, Tony, as we just discussed. Lots of great memories there, but I do feel like it'll be good for this team to be able to play on campus. I do think there's value in that, and it's really exciting. They're practicing there right now. They'll be ready to play there in 26. It's the spot they've been practicing in. They've just like for years and just turning into the actual college ballpark now. But I am excited to see what the next chapter of Utah baseball holds. And I do feel like, as sad as it is to say bye from Smith's Ballpark, feels like the right move.
Yeah, and it's exciting with America First Credit Union putting the money that they did into it to create something like that. Investing into a college baseball stadium is always, I mean, that's a really unique thing. Where are you going to put it? How much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take to put it together? Especially if you have something so available right there and it's a big stadium. Hey, why not just go with that? But for them to have it on campus, I'm with you. I think it's a really, really big deal. And I think they're going to really enjoy having it right there in their backyard. So tip of the hat to America First Credit Union, also, the athletic department with the University of Utah to be able to, have what they have right there on their campus. And I think the players are really going to like it. You get to train right there. You get to work right there. You then get to go play the games right there. And also with the way that they have it, and I've seen the renderings and some of those things, I think it's going to be a nice little atmosphere. I enjoy the softball games up there at Dumpke Field. And I like to head over there. And I think it's like a great intimate setting. It's, just a great feel, great vibe. It's on campus and people enjoy it. They make their way on over there. And I think it's going to be a very similar thing with the new baseball stadium. So excited for that next year and enjoy it. It's kind of like same thing with the Bees last year. Was excited for the new stadium. And you know what? Sit around and soak it up with the last year of the current stadium that you're in, because there is something beautiful about the passing of time and the change and the wonderful things. You miss the old place, you're going to love the new place. And, for people who've had maybe the first house that their family was a part of, they loved it. They had emotional attachment to it. They remember it. And they absolutely will have positive emotions and memories going into their new home too. That becomes a part of their chapter in their history. I do hope, though, one last thing I'll leave you with this, is that the old location, whatever it ends up being, please have some remnants of baseball connection in some way. Have it really a nice tribute to the 97 years. Don't just have it the place everybody goes, oh, yeah, it used to be a baseball stadium. No, have something there that is symbolic to the wonderful history of baseball at that exact corner on 13th and West Temple.
I totally agree. And speaking of new baseball stadiums, new chapters, Tony, tell everyone what they can expect when they head out to the ballpark for the Bees.
I tell you, you're going to get a premier experience. I love it working so closely with the game presentation team. I used to oversee fan experience, now doing play-by-play, but I still stay in touch with the team. Some of the folks that, eventually evolved and took over management positions. And I mean, they are ready to rock, man. I mean, their creativity, their ideas, it is, my whole entire thing years ago with it was minor league baseball, major league experience. And I know they have the same attitude, the same mindset. So, I mean, the work done by Ashley Havili there in marketing, along with Kim Brown, Brecken Johnson, Katie Brotherson, Sammy Miller down there on the field, everybody in the work that they've put in with the kind of passion and desire, they don't just want to have a season. They want to have the very, very best season. And, as a minor league baseball team, we have never strived to give a great experience or to be good at this. We have strived to be the very, very best at it. And that's kind of what we aim for. And so whether it's the broadcast, whether it's, everything that we do in terms of game presentation and making it a great experience when fans come to that new ballpark, there are suites behind home plate that are closer to the mound or closer to home plate than the mound, right? Like the view is still going to be unbelievable. Very intimate connection. The seats are close to the field. There's a nice engaged connection to what's happening. So you're still going to get the community connection, the proximity to the player. You're going to get a lot of those positive elements that you get with a minor league baseball game that you don't get with a major league baseball game, combined with a lot of major league feel with the entertainment, the energy, the presentation. We're aiming in every way to make it a first-class experience. So I know the passion and desire that's been behind this for so long, and it's the people that I think are truly going to make it that way. So I'm lucky. I get to call the game and I get to sit back and watch this and be entertained, whether the game's happening or whether it's between innings. So I get the best of both worlds, man.
Hey, Tuesday, April 8th, going to be incredibly fun to see his new chapter for the Bees. Just like it's always fun having you on, Tony. Thanks again.
Hey, a pleasure. Thanks so much, man.
That's going to do it for today's Locked On Utes. March is here. The madness begins, but the spring ball madness also begins. And on tomorrow's show, we will be reacting to all of what happens in the viewing session for Utah football, as well as what we hear from the coaches. Hope to see and that you will join us all on tomorrow's show.